Do you ever start writing something down and in the process of writing it down, realize what you have done? Hello and welcome to Assorted Meeples. I'm Phillip, the Meeple on duty, and today, as you can see from the stack of books right there, we're going to be talking about books that I've read this year, starting in January, I'm pretty sure I started this. I'm not 100% because I didn't start keeping track, so I don't really know where the line falls, because wintertime in Iowa, I start to get a little read heavy because it starts sounding really good to snuggle under a blanket and lose 10 hours of a day to a book. I didn't realize how many books I have read in this past year. And are any of these books extremely challenging? No. Are they all really good stories? Yes. And I'm going to kind of give a quick description. I wouldn't even call it a description. Review of the books as I go through them. A lot of these are series books, which is okay. I'm going to start with a bonus because I don't actually have the book and I couldn't find it in the house anywhere. And it's a Redwall book by Brian Jacques. I don't know which one it was. I couldn't tell you which. I can't remember the title of it. This was like the second time I've tried reading a Redwall book, and I found it really entertaining. I found the story good. I had a hard time reading it because it left me wanting more than it gave me. It's kind of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for me. I have a very hard time with that book for reasons I don't understand. I just have a hard time reading it. Anyways, but it was a good book. It just didn't pull me in to read the rest of the books. Like, we got a box set for my kids for whatever from Costco for Christmas, and I read the first one, and it didn't pull me in enough that I read all the other 5 books that we had of the series. So that's the thing. I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I'm pretty sure I didn't read the whole series again. We watched the movies with the kids for the first time. That was an entertaining experience. She did a really good job of going back through and writing a prequel, set up the Hunger Games series, and painted why, like, Katniss would have been a threat to Snow as more than she should have been. But I thought it was a really good book. It independently, as a prequel, it left some questions that you're never going to get answers to, because I'm not sure if you held up the timeline for when this book was set to the prequels. It doesn't necessarily mesh very well, in my opinion. There's some huge things that are lost in between the two. We're just going to go, I don't remember the order that I read all these in, so we're just going to kind of go by thing. I read an article, speaking of Paulini, here with the inheritance cycle, starting with Aragorn, Eldest, Brazinger, and Inheritance. I have not read the new one, the Murtagh, or actually any of the extra book stuff. He wrote short stories in the world too. I went back and read this series because I read an article on does it hold up, or watched a video, or both, on does this actually stack up over the course of time, or was it just a thing when it came out? What I'm left with is, this is a good story from a young author at the time. Now, I kind of want to go back and read or I kind of want to now go read Murtaugh to see if his writing has developed over the years or if it's the same level of writing. Because there's a lot of stuff in these books that hurt my soul deeply. And I think a lot of people would agree with me that as well. This read through, I noticed a lot, like his distance covered is so wildly inaccurate for pacing that I was getting angry. It was like reading Harry Potter I've read it 2 or 3 times now, and every time I read it, the plot holes in the book start making me angrier and angrier. And kind of the same thing with this. Well, I need to cover this much ground in this time frame because this is happening, so we did it, but the same time frame you covered this distance. Anyways, that's my big complaint. That and his inability to not make me like awkward trying to write love is just something of beauty. Like I just, it's so bad, it's beautiful. But they're a really good book. Like I enjoyed the read through that I got. He created this world that really drew you in and gave you someone to root for. And it was kind of in the same vein as, you can't really see it down here on the bottom, but John Carter of Mars. They're going to overcome the odds that are stacked against them. You don't know how, but there's something going to happen where they're going to make it through. Next up is actually I should have said these first. The Fable Haven. I read the first 3 books while I was on vacation in Alaska because my brother had them at his house. So that's Fable Haven, Rise of the Evening Star, and Grip of the Shadow Plague. These are by Brandon Mull. These were interesting reads. They are set in modern society with the caveat that fairy tale creatures are real and that most of them prefer to live on a preserve where they are away from people and can be themselves. You have 2 young siblings that get pulled into their grandpa's shenanigans, and that is where our story takes place. They were okay reads. I wasn't necessarily like ripping the books open to get it done, but it drew me in enough that I wanted to read the second book and the third book. I don't have access to the couple others to finish out the series, and am I going to go out of my way to do so? Probably not. I'm not the target audience either. They were written fairly well. There were no huge loopholes or, things just wrong in the books where you're just like, why? So, good books. Worth a read if you want just some filler content. If you're a younger reader reading them, I think they would be very engaging and very age appropriate for kids. Especially in that 12 to 15 or 10 to 15 range, which they're written for. Very good books. Now on the bottom you can't see, I have John Carter of Mars. I have by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I've read, it's a 5-book series in 1 volume. Not chronological, but they're 5 good examples. It's the first 3 and then some 2 other select books. These are the grandpappy of science fiction and escapism, and they are absolutely ridiculous and fantastic. I love the story behind these, that he had basically failed at every other career he tried. He thought the first book was going to fail hard, so he used a pen name when he turned the book in, and then it sold, and he never used the pen name again. The books just stack problem on top of problem, and you have to get better, or you have to be clever to outwit your problems. And while they're great, it's just another one of those run on like power up so you can move on in anime and mangas, things like that. They're great fun, but long term, I was just like, I read the first 2 books, and then I started reading the 3rd book, went on to Alaska adventures this summer, and when I came back, I had very little interest to read the 3rd book and the 4th book. So I've read A Princess of Mars and The Gods of Mars. Both were fun books, but they, again, didn't draw me in to the point that I needed to see what the next book held. At the time they were written, they were completely new and revolutionary and wondrous, and they were written in a time where exploration and wonder were still a thing. And they're showing their age in how they approach the world that he built. And it's not a bad thing, but it's something that, to me, distracted, yeah, I'll say distracted, not detracted, distracted from the story that he was writing. And so, yeah, they were a good read. Would I say go out of your way to read these books now? No, but if you have a curiosity and you want Pulp Fiction, like popcorn type of movie, then read the John Carter books. They're still readable. They're just ridiculous and fun in ways that authors today choose not to be fun and ridiculous for the most part. The next one I'll go on to is the Alcatraz. Actually, I've read a lot of Brandon Sanderson this year. They are on hand, and I'm a big fan of his writing style. So for the first one, we bought the Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarian series. I went in not knowing much about these, besides they were written by him. They are young, not even young adult. They are I don't even know what they're aimed at a younger crowd. These books made me laugh, and they do something no other book that I know of does. Every chapter basically starts with writing advice, because this is Alcatraz I think he said at the age of 19, writing his memoirs from when he was 14. And he throws in all these great nuggets of wisdom of how to write good books, and then proceeds to write a comedy book. Because they are comedy. They're meant to be lighthearted and fun. And for me, he nailed it. These books are completely ridiculous, out of left field, and just good entertainment. And I'm glad I read them, even at my age. Next up, we have the entire Mistborn line. I bought my wife these nice bookshelf paperbacks for all of them because I looked at the cost of leather-bound copies for the Mistborn series, and I went, not right now. Maybe eventually, but not right now. I love my wife, but I love being in the black better than I love loving my wife with ridiculous gifts. But I mean, Brandon, if you're ever watching this, you can send me those copies. I would gladly show them off and have them on my shelf. But I read through the entire Mistborn series. This is one that I really enjoy because the world is really good, and the premise for this world is absolutely fantastic. It caught my attention. Either my brother or I can't remember where I got it, but I'm pretty sure my brother's like, yeah, he's writing a trilogy of trilogies set in the same world at different times, eras. So the first three, so Mistborn, Well of Ascension, and Hero of Ages, are all set in a medieval fantasy world. Alloy of Law, Shadows Shadows of Self, Bands of Mourning, and Lost Metal are an accident. And they're set in the, like, Industrial Revolution / Western setting. It's 300 years later. He calls it an accident because he really just meant to flesh out kind of what was happening in the in-between times, because his next one he was going to do was a, like, modern one, and then he was going to do a sci-fi dystopian future one. And he wound up writing a book and then having to write out the rest of them. And on this read through, the only one that was new was the last book, which was The Lost Metal. And it really doesn't care. It opens up the Cosmere and starts giving a lot of answers of what is going on around in the Cosmere. And I really enjoy that, because before reading through the books, I haven't read the entire Cosmere that's been published yet, but I've read through this one and what's currently available in the Stormlight archives. And I really love that the connection of the whole universe is coming together, and it's coming out where, oh yeah, those people are clearly not from the same planet. And I have my theories on the Cosmere, but that's another story entirely that we could go down a huge rabbit hole of, that I'm not sure I want to, especially not in this this video. And I think that does it for all of these. I love the oh no, I have one more. The Mistborn series, I really appreciate the metal, the system with the metals being the way that you manipulate it. I love the three different magic systems that are in it. And honestly, I really enjoy the Wax and Wayne era. He really nailed the buddy friend banter back and forth with Wax and Wayne. And I appreciate that, because I got way too much of a kick out of those two going back and forth that I probably shouldn't have. But the humor hit me right. While Brandon's not funny, he is funny. In the last book, this is one I just read recently, and that's Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is, how to say it? It is a wonderful fairy tale-esque story written from the perspective of Hoyd, and I'm here for it. He built a world that is going to be very important in the future, and yeah, it's all there. I'm excited. This is another one where you're getting straight Cosmere stuff, and it's going to pay dividends in the future. I know this was one of his secret projects that he came out with during COVID, because he had free time to write on top of his normal writing time. I'm very thankful to have this on my collection. This is also the very nice hardcover with the imprint and all that stuff. So this is one that's going on my shelf and is going to stay there for a long time. And eventually I will get Brandon to sign this for me, along with the other 4 secret projects. That is the books that I've read so far this year. I just started the Fellowship of the Ring, and I'm going to read through that again. I haven't read it in a while. And yeah, so part of what led me down this path of reading, I was like, in this video, is I started like, man, how many books have I read this year? And I started thinking about it. I'm like, wow, I'm getting up there. And then I started actually writing the list down. And I went, this is a longer list than I thought it was. And I started reading this past winter because I felt the need to be creative in a way that I couldn't be creative otherwise, or wasn't going to be. And reading is an easy way to spark your imagination and to get the creative thought processes going. And I really enjoy that. What books are you guys reading right now? And leave a comment down below with that. And we will talk to you next time. All right. Bye.
If you like what you just saw, please support us by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more great gaming content.